What a game! Between French maestro Alireza Firouzja and Armenian grandmaster representing USA Levon Aronian. This is World Team Rapid and Blitz Championship 2025. Alireza starts with e4, e6, Aronian prepares French defense against French grandmaster. d4, d5. Here white have three main continuations: knight d2, knight c3, and pushing the pawn forward e5. Alireza prefers knight c3. Knight f6 developing move for Aronian. Now Firouzja pushes the pawn forward, Aronian retreats his knight, and f4, stressing the triangle in the middle with pawns d4, e5, and f4. c5 immediately breaking through for Aronian, challenging that white center. Knight f3, knight c6 developing moves, bishop e3, and a6 preparing the move b5. Queen d2, maybe hinting at castling long side, but immediate b5 from Aronian, and Alireza Firouzja understands that castling long side will be a suicide here, so he plays queen f2, and Aronian continues his activities on the queen side of the board with queen a5. Bishop d3, nice diagonal for the bishop, but Aronian is very aggressive. b4, attacking the knight on c3. It has to retreat. c4, attacking the bishop. Bishop has to be removed from the thread. b3, using the pin. So you cannot take the pawn with the a pawn because you're gonna lose the rook on a1. Therefore, Alireza pushes his pawn to c3, and here comes probably the move of the game. Queen take a2, sacrifices the rook. What an epic move by Aronian. And now, if rook takes queen, then pawn will take the rook, and white cannot stop the pawn from promoting. So they will just lose a full rook. Therefore, Alireza plays rook c1, knight b6, and castles short side. Aronian continues with attacking on the queen side of the board with pawn a5, aiming to move the pawn forward, probably to a square a3. Alireza counterattacks on the king side of the board with the move f5. Aronian takes the pawn and knight h4, attacking the pawn on a5. g6 seemingly protecting everything, but here comes g4, challenging like a pawn break, attacking the pawn on f5. Bishop e6, and look at this position for white. For black, they have most of their pieces on white squares. It looks like checkers. And what an ugly bishop on e6. He really doesn't have any moves. Alireza takes the pawn on f5, g takes f5, knight takes f5, and now black king is in some danger because white have an open f file. Rook g8 check first, king h1, and Aronian goes long castle and escapes the danger, or at least he thinks he escapes the danger, but Alireza plays bishop h6. Very instructive move, by the way. Look at those bishops. The dark square bishop for white, and look at these pawns, all on dark squares. So this bishop, dark square bishop for white, is not a very good piece. The light square bishop for white is a very good piece because all the pawns again are on dark squares. On the contrary, for black, the black square bishop is a great bishop because all the pawns are on white squares. And bishop on e6, light square bishop, is a very bad bishop. So white want to exchange their bad bishop for black's good bishop. Very instructive chess. And black cannot avoid this exchange because the black square bishop does not have any moves. Knight a4, attacking the pawn on b2. Exchange of the bishops on f8, check from b6, king b8, and bishop goes to a very nice diagonal, challenging the pawn on d5. And also the pawn on b2 is now protected by the knight and by the queen. f6, immediately trying to break through and open up an f file for the rook. Queen h4 for Firouzja, f takes e5, and queen takes h7. And now the checkmate threat on b7. Aronian obviously sees it and plays knight d8, protecting the square b7. Queen e7 and knight b6. Knight b5 and another checkmate threat with moves queen c7 and then queen a7 checkmate. So it has to be protected, and Levon Aronian plays a nice move, a rook f7, not only protecting the 7th rank, but also attacking the queen. Queen check from d6, king goes to b7. This position, according to the computers, is even, although it's a pretty crazy position. And now Alireza Firouzja makes a big mistake. He plays queen e5. And the winning move for black, I wouldn't say the winning, but the move that gives them a huge advantage, is actually knight c6, attacking the queen and going aggressive. Instead, Levon Aronian plays a more passive move, rook d7. Knight a3, rook goes on an open f-file, rook f8, and queen e2. This move actually attacks the pawn on c4, because the pawn on d5 that protects this pawn is pinned. So the pawn on c4 is under attack by the knight, and therefore rook f8. Levon Aronian doubles his rooks on an f-file, and now you cannot take the pawn on c4, because after exchanges on c4, queen takes c4, rook will take the bishop on f3, and white will be without the bishop. So therefore bishop goes back to g2, exchange of the rooks on f1, and knight a4. Again putting some pressure on the pawn on b2. Bishop g2. White's position is becoming better and better with every move. The bishop is on a great diagonal, and now the pawn on c4 is really under attack again, because the pawn on d5 is pinned. Black plays king c8. They remove the king from this diagonal, so now the pawn protects the other pawn. Knight b5, and this position is already pretty much winning for white. And the reason is that after king d7, queen e5, look at this position. The king is pretty much in cage, and the knight and the queen are attacking him. Now the knight on d8 is doing pretty much nothing. The bishop on e6 is ugly looking. Knight on a4 is doing nothing. Most importantly, the queen on a2 has been out of the game for pretty much the whole game after that brilliant sacrifice. King c6, queen d6 check, king takes d5, queen takes f8. Now Alireza Firouzja is up in exchange. Knight takes b2 and queen d8. Queen takes d8. So now white is up a full rook. King c6 and knight e3. Game over. Aronian resigned in this absolutely crazy game, which he started with the brilliant sacrifice of the queen. Then he still had a very good, almost winning position about 10 moves ago. Couple of inaccuracies, and Alireza Firouzja got the initiative and won the game. The reason Aronian resigned here is, first of all, he is without a full rook, but also most importantly, the pawn on d5 cannot survive. The knight, the bishop, the queen, they all attacking that pawn. Only two defenders for black, and black's position is gonna be destroyed very quickly. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, and see you soon.